The air in the lawyer's office was thick with tension and expensive perfume as Mr. Davidson read my father's will. My siblings, dressed in designer mourning wear that probably cost more than my yearly salary, sat with barely concealed anticipation. After all, the Harrison fortune was substantial, and they'd spent their entire lives competing for the largest share. I'm Katherine Harrison, though these days I go by Kate. At 32 I was the family misfit, the one who studied environmental science instead of business, who cared more about soil composition than stock portfolios. My father never forgave me for choosing dirt over the family's real estate empire. To my eldest son, James Harrison, Mr. Davidson read, adjusting his glasses, "I leave the Harrison building in downtown Boston, valued at $48 million, along with liquid assets totaling $15 million. James, immaculate in his Tom Ford suit, nodded as if this was exactly what he deserved. Next came my sister Victoria's inheritance. Our father's mansion in Martha's Vineyard, a portfolio of luxury apartments, and another $12 million in cash. My youngest brother Alexander received the family's Hampton estate, a collection of sports cars and his own 8-figure bank account. With each bequest, the smug smiles on my siblings' faces grew wider. Finally, Mr. Davidson turned to me. "And to my second daughter, Katherine." He paused, checking his papers as if he couldn't believe what he was reading. "I leave the Harrison farm in western Massachusetts." The room erupted in poorly concealed laughter. Victoria didn't even try to hide her smirk. "Oh, that's perfect," she whispered to James. "Kate gets the dirt she loves so much." The Harrison farm was 300 acres of what my family had always called worthless land. My grandfather bought it in the 1960s for reasons nobody understood, and it had sat abandoned ever since. The only time I'd ever seen my father visit the property was when he took me there at age 16, trying to scare me straight after I announced my plan to study environmental science. "You see this?" He had gestured at the overgrown fields and dilapidated buildings. "This is what happens when you don't focus on real business. Worthless land that produces nothing." But I had seen something different that day. Something in the soil, in the way certain plants grew, or didn't grow. Something that had sparked my interest enough to shape my entire career path. "Is that all?" I asked Mr. Davidson, my voice steady despite the mocking glances from my siblings. He nodded, looking almost apologetic. "The farm and its mineral rights. That's all that was designated for you." "Mineral rights?" Alexander snorted. "Planning to dig for gold, Kate?" I ignored him, gathering my things. Unlike my siblings, I hadn't dressed for show. My work boots and practical clothes stood out among their funeral finery, just as I had always stood out in this family of real estate tycoons. "Kate," Victoria called as I reached the door, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "If you need help selling that worthless plot, I'm sure James knows some developers who might take it off your hands. For a very small sum, of course." I turned back, meeting her gaze. "No thanks, Vic. I think I'll hold on to my dirt." What they didn't know, what none of them had ever bothered to learn, was that I wasn't just an environmental scientist. I was one of the top geological surveyors in the country, specializing in rare earth elements. Those worthless 300 acres had been calling to me since that first visit, but my father had never allowed me to conduct a proper survey. Now I didn't need his permission. I drove straight to the farm from the lawyer's office, my truck bouncing along the overgrown access road. The main house was exactly as I remembered it, a solid old farmhouse that needed work but had good bones. The barn was larger than I recalled, its structure surprisingly sound despite years of neglect. But I wasn't here for the buildings. I was here for what lay beneath them. I pulled out my preliminary survey kit and got to work. 6 hours later, as the sun was setting over the western fields, I sat on the farmhouse's creaky porch steps, staring at my initial readings in disbelief. The soil samples confirmed what I had suspected all those years ago. The strange growth patterns, the unusual mineral traces. It all made sense now. The Harrison farm sat on one of the largest deposits of rare earth elements in North America. Rare earth elements. The 17 chemical elements crucial for everything from smartphones to electric vehicles to military equipment. The same elements that China currently controlled almost 95% of the global supply of. The same elements that every tech company and defense contractor in America desperately needed. And I was sitting on a mother lode of them. I spent the next week living out of my truck, conducting more detailed surveys. Each new test confirmed my initial findings. Conservative estimates put the deposit's value at over $200 million, and that was just the easily accessible portion. But mining rare earth elements isn't like digging for gold. It's a complex process that requires extensive environmental considerations, exactly the kind of considerations I had spent my career studying. This wasn't just a valuable discovery, it was a chance to prove that rare earth mining could be done responsibly without destroying the environment. I called Dr. Chin, my old professor from grad school who now ran one of the most innovative mining technology companies in the world. "Kate," he said after I sent him my preliminary data, "this is extraordinary. With the right extraction methods, we could set up the first large-scale environmentally sustainable rare earth mining operation in the country," I finished. "I know. That's why I'm calling. I need partners who understand both the business and environmental sides of this." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I moved into the old farmhouse, working 18-hour days between continuing surveys and developing business plans. Dr. Chin connected me with investors who understood the long-term potential of responsible rare earth mining. Environmental impact studies were initiated, permit applications filed. My siblings, meanwhile, were busy spending their inheritances. James was already planning renovations to his building. Victoria had been featured in Boston Magazine, showing off her new Martha's Vineyard estate. Alexander had crashed one of his new sports cars and was shopping for a replacement. None of them paid any attention to what I was doing out on the worthless farm. None of them noticed the steady stream of geological experts and environmental consultants visiting the property. None of them thought to question why their dirt-loving sister was suddenly so busy. Then came the day I had both anticipated and dreaded. My phone rang during a meeting with our engineering team. It was James. "Kate," he sounded breathless, unusual for my always composed older brother. "There's a rumor going around about some major rare earth element discovery in western Massachusetts. Please tell me it's not the farm." I finished for him. "Sorry, James. Looks like Dad's worthless dirt isn't so worthless after all." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Then, we need to talk. Family meeting. Tonight." "Can't," I replied, watching as another truck of survey equipment rolled up my driveway. "I'm meeting with our engineering team about environmentally sustainable extraction methods. Maybe next week." "Our engineering team?" he sputtered. "Kate, this is family money we're talking about. You can't just—" "Actually, James, it's my money. My land. My mineral rights. Dad made that very clear in the will, remember? You all got the buildings and the cash. I got the dirt." I ended the call and turned back to my team. On the table before us lay the plans for what would become the most environmentally conscious rare earth mining operation in the Western Hemisphere. Solar-powered processing facilities, closed-loop water recycling systems, comprehensive land reclamation programs. We were going to prove that critical mineral extraction didn't have to mean environmental destruction. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my siblings. Victoria's ranged from threats to sweet-talking attempts at partnership offers. Alexander alternated between demanding his fair share and offering to buy me out. I ignored them all. Because what none of them understood was that this wasn't just about money. This was about proving that their way, the ruthless profit-at-any-cost way our father had taught them, wasn't the only path to success. I was about to prove that you could build something valuable while still protecting what mattered. And I was going to do it with the very thing they had mocked me for loving: dirt. The Harrison family conference room still smelled of leather and privilege. I hadn't stepped foot in here since the day I announced my disappointing career choice, but now I sat at the head of the table, watching my siblings file in with barely contained fury. James entered first, his perfect suit wrinkled from a rushed flight back from New York. Victoria followed, her Louboutins clicking aggressively against the marble floor. Alexander slouched in last, looking hungover despite the early hour. "Before you start," I held up my hand as James opened his mouth, "let me save us all some time. The rare earth deposit is real. The mining rights are legally mine. And no, I'm not interested in any sort of family partnership." "You can't just keep this to yourself," Victoria hissed. "This is Harrison family land." "Was Harrison family land," I corrected her, opening my laptop. "Tao, it's mine. Just like the building is James's, the mansion is yours, and the cars are Alexander's." Or are we suddenly questioning Dad's will? This is different. James leaned forward, trying to use his height to intimidate me even while seated. You're sitting on a fortune in rare earth elements. The family should benefit. The family. I laughed. You mean the same family that mocked my career choice? The same family that called me a failure for caring about environmental science? That family. I turned my laptop around, showing them the geological survey results. Do you even know what you're looking at? Can any of you explain why this deposit is valuable beyond the dollar signs? Silence. Of course not. They'd never bothered to understand what I actually did for a living. These are the highest concentrations of neodymium and dysprosium found in North America, I explained, highlighting sections of the report. Essential elements for electric vehicles, wind turbines, military equipment. But extracting them is complex, environmentally sensitive work. Work I've spent my entire career preparing for. We can hire experts. Alexander waved his hand dismissively. Split the profits. I am the expert, I cut him off. That's what you never understood. While you were all fighting over who would control Dad's real estate empire, I was becoming one of the top rare earth mining consultants in the country. Victoria's perfectly maintained facade cracked. You planned this. Somehow you knew. I suspected, I corrected her. I've known since I was 16 that there was something unusual about the soil composition. But Dad wouldn't let me conduct a proper survey. He was too busy trying to force me into real estate. So what's your plan? James demanded. Cut us out completely? I clicked to the next slide. Architectural renderings of our planned facility. Harrison Sustainable Mining. State-of-the-art extraction facilities powered by solar and wind. Closed-loop water recycling systems. Complete land restoration programs. We're going to show the world that rare earth mining doesn't have to destroy the environment. How much? Alexander interrupted. Just tell us your price. Everyone has one. I stood up slowly, looking each of them in the eye. You still don't get it. This isn't about money. This is about doing something that matters. Something more important than another luxury apartment building or sports car collection. More important than family? Victoria's voice dripped with venom. Family. I gestured around the room. When did any of you act like family? When did you support my choices? Recognize my expertise? Even try to understand what I was passionate about? I clicked through more slides. Environmental impact studies, sustainability plans, projected job creation numbers. While you were laughing at my worthless dirt, I was learning how to extract these elements safely. While you were spending Dad's money, I was building relationships with environmental scientists and mining engineers. I don't need your help and I don't want it. James stood up abruptly. We'll fight this. The lawyers will tell you the same thing I am, I interrupted. The will is clear. The mineral rights are mine. But by all means waste your inheritance on legal fees. I'm sure Dad would be proud. I packed up my laptop as they sat in stunned silence. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the EPA about our environmental impact studies. Some of us have real work to do. Wait, Victoria called as I reached the door. What would it take to be part of this? I turned back, studying my sister's face. For the first time, I saw something there besides contempt. Fear. Fear that she'd backed the wrong horse. Fear that her perfect inheritance might not be worth as much as her little sister's dirt. You want to be part of this? I asked. Here's what it would take. Go back to school. Learn about environmental science. Understand why sustainable mining matters. Prove that you care about more than just profits. Then maybe, we can talk about a junior position in the company. Alexander snorted. You can't be serious. Completely serious, I replied. That's the difference between us. You think success is about taking. I think it's about building something worthwhile. I left them there, their protests fading behind me as I walked through the building that had once represented everything I was supposed to want. My phone buzzed. Dr. Chin was calling with updates about our latest equipment tests. The next few months were a blur of activity. While my siblings wasted money on lawyers, who all told them the same thing, they had no case, I built something revolutionary. Our sustainable mining operation became a model for the industry. International delegations visited to study our methods. The EPA used us as an example of responsible resource extraction. The irony wasn't lost on me. The worthless farm was now worth more than all my siblings' inheritances combined. But more importantly, we were proving that profit and environmental responsibility weren't mutually exclusive. 1 year after the will reading, I stood on the observation deck of our newly completed processing facility. Below me, solar panels glinted in the sunlight, powering operations that would help break China's monopoly on rare earth elements. Behind the facility, our first reclaimed section of land was already showing signs of healthy regrowth. My phone buzzed with a news alert. James had just sold his building at a loss. Victoria's Martha's Vineyard mansion was on the market. Alexander had crashed his last sports car and couldn't afford to replace it. Then came a different kind of message from Dr. Chen. Tesla just confirmed. They want to sign an exclusive supply contract. 5 years. Estimated value $500 million. I smiled, looking out over the land my family had dismissed as worthless. The land that was now helping build a sustainable future. The land that had proven that sometimes the best inheritance isn't what's most obvious. My assistant appeared at my side. Ms. Harrison? The Department of Energy representatives are here for the tour. I nodded, straightening my work jacket. Not designer but practical and durable, just like everything else in my life now. Let's show them how rare earth mining should be done. As I led the delegation through our facility, explaining our innovative processes and environmental safeguards, I thought about something my father once said: real business is about taking everything you can get. He was wrong. Real business, successful business, is about building something meaningful. Something that lasts. Something that makes the world better, not just richer. My siblings never understood that. They're still fighting over buildings and bank accounts, still measuring success in square footage and stock portfolios. Meanwhile, I'm helping shape the future of sustainable mining, proving that environmental responsibility and profitability can go hand in hand. The Department of Energy officials were visibly impressed. This is remarkable, Ms. Harrison. You've created something revolutionary here. Thank you, I replied, watching as another load of rare earth elements moved through our solar-powered processing system. But we're just getting started. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right in ways they never imagined possible. Sometimes the greatest success comes from seeing value where others see worthlessness. And sometimes, just sometimes, a worthless inheritance turns out to be the most valuable gift of all. Not just because of what's in the soil, but because it gives you the chance to prove that there's more than one way to build a legacy. A legacy that's measured not just in dollars, but in the positive change you create in the world. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Victoria. Can we talk? Maybe I'm ready to learn. I smiled, typing back. Class starts Monday. Don't be late. Because sometimes success isn't just about winning. It's about showing others a better way forward. Even if those others are the family who never believed in you in the first place.